Welcome to Knife Thoughts. This video is going to be on these two knives, and these are the two newest versions of the Ocoee River Kayak from Rosecraft Blades. And so this kayak is inspired by the traditional canoe pattern. So it has equal ends, it has a swell center, and the ends are raised here. So almost like a copperhead bolster. And that's, really typical of a canoe, of a traditional canoe pattern. The thing that differentiates this kayak is that it has a very different blade shape. So this is what Rosecraft is calling a K-clip blade. And really it reminds me of the reverse Tonto on an Osborne from Benchmade. And it's kind of like a spay blade with much less belly, you could think of it that way, or a clip point that has the clip very short and abrupt. So you do have some belly, it's not a straight edge, it's not like a sheepfoot or a Warncliffe, but you have this long swedge here on the spine and then the clip here towards the tip. So it's an interesting blade shape. It is a good blade shape for use because you do get a usable point, you get some belly. And another difference with this knife and a lot of traditional canoe pattern knives is that this is a single blade. There are usually two-bladed canoe knives with a spear point main blade and a pen secondary. But this one is based on, Rosecraft's site says this is based on an original kayak pattern designed by Andy Armstrong, and I believe that that is referring to a knife on the Rough Rider Reserve line. I don't know for sure, but I know that they had a kayak pattern, and Andy Armstrong was designing knives for Rough Rider until starting Rosecraft. So that's what I'm guessing, but I'm not 100% sure. And then finally, one difference between this and a typical canoe pattern is that it is a bare end. So you can see it only has the top bolster here and no end cap. And most canoe patterns have an end cap, partly because most of them are two-bladed knives. So it's a little different than your typical canoe, and that's why it's a kayak. But I think this particular version of the Ocoee River Kayak is really nice because of this really cool split blue resin and Burl wood handle. So my wife, sees a lot of knives and is a little bit tired of them. She is very helpful with knife thoughts, but doesn't necessarily love seeing every knife. And when she saw this knife, I didn't even ask her about it. She just saw it setting on our table and said, "Oh, that's a pretty one." And I think that that's very true. It's got this nice swirled blue resin. It has the rosebud shield there, and it fits in with the burl wood that has a similar type of swirl. So really nice looking, and I think particularly this version because the blue goes along with the idea of this being named after a watercraft, a kayak. The red is also nice looking. Certainly nothing wrong with the red, but I do think that the blue fits the theme a little bit better. You can see on this one here how this burl does have some cool knots and things like that. This is the one that I carried and used. And I'm going to show you a couple other Rosecraft knives in red and blue, just ones that I grabbed. This is the loom fixer, and what do they call that bone? There's a particular name for that bone, and then here is the teardrop, and that is in the Bora Bora blue bone. So you can see that they're not the brightest blues and reds here on the kayak, but they are good looking. And again, especially I think the blue fits the theme really nicely. Now, as usual, these are made very well. You can see no gaps on the back spring, no gaps on the bolsters either that I can see. I do think that there's a tiny little bit of shrinkage of the wood. You can kind of see the edge of the liner there. That's something that I have relatively commonly on traditional knives, wood-handled knives in general. I think that my where I keep my knives is really dry. We have a dehumidifier, and I think that it might kind of dry out wooden handles. So I'm not sure how prevalent it will be in general, but I do get that relatively commonly on my knives, and there's a little bit of it on this one. As you can see, I can catch my nail a little bit there. But you can see that it's well centered. It sits nice and deep in the frame, which I love, and you don't have to worry about blade wrap because there is a stop pin. The stop pin's relatively far forward on this one. It's kind of interesting, but nice action. Snaps closed nicely. Good pull. I would say like a 6 on the pull. It's relatively sturdy pull. You can use the nail nick, but I can also pinch it there, as you can see. So really well made, an interesting pattern, and one that I have enjoyed getting to check out. My mom is a big canoeist. She is really into canoeing and competes and things like that. So I have actually given her canoe pattern knives before, but she's a semi against kayaks because kayaks are much more popular now. So I don't know, I might give this one to her, but I might give it to one of my cousins who's a big kayaker also, or probably I'll probably give this one and keep this one. But anyway, I've enjoyed getting to check out these knives. I want to say thank you to Andy at Rosecraft Blades, as always. If you decide to pick one of these up, you can get them at Traditional Pocket Knives and use my code KT10 for a discount. You can also go to Rosecraft directly. If you enjoy this type of video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, click the bell, and select all so you know when I post new videos. And go to my website, knifethoughts.com, and subscribe to the email newsletter there. That way you don't miss any knife thoughts. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.